Alright, I admit it. I'm not a day 1 player. I'm a day 2 player. Hello! So this channel recently hit 100 subscribers. That's not the biggest milestone, but I still wanted to find a little way to celebrate, so I thought what better than a little account tour. I say little, this is probably going to be long and rambly, and probably a little less edited than my other videos. And what better way to start that account tour in my favorite region with my 4 favorite characters. Yup, I have the whole desert completed. Although, to be fair, I also have the rest of the map completed. And before you ask, yes, that does include Enka, the Chasm, and the Sea of Bygone Eras. Even though I have every region 100%, that doesn't mean I've collected every single chest. I know for a fact there are a few laying around because I actually use an interactive map tool. I'll link it down in the description. Anyways, I'm going to talk about that and how I still manage to find enjoyment in exploration a little bit later. For now, let's start off by looking at all the 5-star characters I have, which ones I did and didn't pull for, and which ones I like playing. All these characters I have at C0, except for 2 of them. I will bring that up when they come up. Starting off with a banger is Venti. I don't have him. I have never tried pulling for him because I didn't want him until a few months ago. I always liked his personality, but I could never really justify pulling him until I got Emily, and I wanted to start doing air fryer stuff with her. Because fun fact, both the burning reaction and all of Emily's damage have an AoE, but they're a very small AoE. Venti is the only character who can group enemies close enough for a long enough time that they can take damage from that AoE. None of the banners in 5.4 interest me, and he's the only Archon that's been left without a rerun in Natlan, so I hope he's up next. So Venti is probably going to be the next character I get. Moving on to Klee. Klee I don't have any particular issues with. As far as pyro carries go, I think I would rather play Yanfei. The main thing that puts me off, I like her character. I don't like the child character models. They unsettle me. As much as I suffer from meta brain rot, how the characters look is important to me, and I can't really justify spending my primos on a character that makes me actively uncomfortable to look at. But you know, Klee herself is fine. If you like Klee, whatever. Tartag's actually a bit of an interesting one. I have been playing him a little bit more recently. He was one of the first units that I pulled, I believe only the 3rd 5-star. 3rd limited 5-star, that is. We'll come back to that. He has a weird kit and he's kind of hard to play, and that spoke to me. It still speaks to me. I didn't play him for a long time because I think I actually got him too early. I might appreciate him more if I got him on like this chronicled banner or something, but I grabbed him back in Inazuma. I didn't really know what I was doing in Inazuma, so I played him for a little bit. He got benched after a few months. Now that I'm a little bit better at the game and I kind of know what I'm doing, I've come back around on Childe, although I have never stopped loving his character. I love insane people who are insane for the sake of it. Zhongli, I would say he's maybe one of my only 2 regrets. I don't even really regret pulling him. I've gotten some decent use out of him, and he still serves the same purpose that he always does. Big wall of meat. But as I've gotten better at the game and I've learned what I enjoy about it, big wall of meat has just become less and less valuable to me. What I find fun about the game is making characters interact and complement each other in different ways. I think Childe is actually a really good example of this in International, where the initial hit of his skill applies 2 units of Hydro, so Bennett can burst but not completely remove the Hydro aura on enemies, allowing Kazuha to get a double swirl by swirling Hydro first and absorbing Pyro from Benny Burst. And he forward vapes his burst before going into his skill and applying Hydro so Xiangling can reverse vape. I love that interaction, and Zhongli is like the least interactive unit there is. Don't get me wrong, that's one of his strengths. He does what he does without interrupting your team's reactions, but it's not something that I find I need or enjoy anymore. Love him for Mono Geo and exploration though. Albedo is my ultimate vanity pull. I have Chiori. I have C1 Chiori. I have basically no need ever for Albedo, but he is very pretty, and his kit is funny and bad, so I want him. Ganyu is very similar to Venti, character that I've never tried going for on a banner before, but recently some things have changed where I realized I do kind of like her. After giving charge shotters a chance, I've kind of fallen in love with them. They are kind of my favorite unit design in the game. I think they're really, really cool. I have her charted right now on the Chronicle banner. I'm not wishing because I don't have the guarantee, but Ganyu is a character that I am very, very interested in getting. I think I would play her a lot if I did. Xiao, to me, Xiao is like the ultimate meh. He has a cool enough gimmick that if I just got him off of a Chronicled or whatever, I would probably build him and play him a reasonable amount, but I don't think I would ever intentionally pull for Xiao. Now, if we're talking about his constellations, that's a different story. I would absolutely pull Xiao constellations if I already had him. These are the funniest things in the world. Hu Tao was the first 5-star I ever pulled. I got her on her first banner in 1.3. She holds a special place in my heart for that reason, and that's maybe the only reason why I keep going back to play her, because I do not like the jump cancels. I don't have her C1. I've actually considered getting it. This is something I am interested in going into the future. I just hate jump cancels. I don't like them at all. I have a few Hu Tao teams where I play her doing normal attack combos and the jump cancels aren't so necessary, but I don't know if I would have bothered to make those teams if I didn't have that kind of sentimental attachment to her. And if I didn't already have her at C0, I might actually skip her, and I definitely would not go for her C1. Next up is Eula. Forgive me here, but I'm actually gonna go on a little tangent. I don't like you, not because anything to do with her actual kit. She has a fine kit. Physical doesn't interest me that much as an archetype. I mean, I haven't gone for her, and I probably won't in the future. The real reason I don't like you is because you make Mika look bad. I am sick and tired of hearing about how Mika is, the worst unit in the game. He's the worst unit in the game. Mika's buffs are dumb. They are stupid. Admittedly, a decent amount of his power is in his constellations, but at C6, he is giving your on-fielder a 50% physical damage bonus and a 25% attack speed bonus. That is, if you crown his skill and you're insane like I did. And he gives every character in the team a 60% crit damage buff on physical damage. These are dumb high buffs. If Mika had actual characters to buff, he'd be stupid. If he had a premium physical DPS, if he had actual physical off-fielders who could make use of these things, and also he can do all this while holding the bless and losing basically nothing, he would be stupid. And you say, oh, well, all of that is speculative. We don't actually have a good physical on-fielder. We only have Eula, who, if she wants to detonate her burst early, she has to swap out, and then she can't get that 50% physical damage bonus that Mika gives. We only have this character who is kind of incompatible with Mika's kit and also is not that good overall, and we don't have any physical off-fielders at all. So even though you're saying he would be good with those things, he is bad, right? No! Even if we ignore all the buffs he gives, even if we ignore 80% of his kit, this still makes him good. He is one of 2 cryo full party healers, and I'm gonna be real, I'm sorry Charlotte, I think he's the better one to work with. Charlotte's hold skill needs to be held for like 3 seconds before you actually use it, and even after that, it generates cryo particles over time instead of on the initial hit, which Mika generates all his particles right away because his skill only has 1 hit. Yeah, he has less cryo application than Charlotte, and I guess if you really need the cryo application, then that's when you can use Charlotte over him, I think. Yeah, Charlotte also has a higher burst cost. Mika is so good that even though his kit is 80% dead in the water, there isn't a single unit that can use it to its fullest extent. He squeaks by being okay with just his burst. He is usable in Furina teams because of this. There are feasible benefits that you can get from Mika without using most of Mika. Mark my words, if the physical meta ever comes around, Mika is going to see a renaissance. He's going to be a top tier buffing option that is also able to full stack Furina fanfare. Anyways, I don't like you because you made people think Mika was bad. Next up, Kazuha's Kazuha. We all have Kazuha. As you can see, I waited a pretty long time on Kazuha. I wasn't there for the first banner. I skipped the second banner. I lost on the 3rd banner, but on his 4th in Fontaine, I finally managed to grab him. I think Zajeff puts it perfectly when he says, Kazuha isn't necessary until you already have him. He's not a significant enough upgrade to pull him over Sucrose, or especially now that Xilonen exists. I think it's easier than ever to go without Kazuha on your account, but once you have Kazuha, it's kind of hard to go back to not using Kazuha. He's just so flexible and has such good quality of life. Ayaka was kind of like Hu Tao in the sense that I didn't really pull her because I wanted her. I just kind of didn't know what I was doing and I wanted to flesh out my account more. I probably like her around the same amount. I think this is a pretty good comparison actually, because both of them I find to be a little clunky, but when I want Freeze Ayaka or Veipu Tao, there's just nothing like it. I have to go to them to get my fix. Yoimiya is maybe the character that I care the least about. I don't dislike her. I'm just entirely indifferent. I like her character. I don't think I would ever enjoy playing her. I really like the on-fielders where I get to press as many buttons as possible. The more things my brain has to do, the happier I am. So to me, the most boring thing in the world is... I hope the microphone picked that up. I might have to turn it up in post. I love complex carries where I'm pressing 1,000 buttons at once. Yoimiya is kind of the antithesis of that, and you're probably able to see why I am not that interested in her. Fine design, just one that's not for me. Raiden, I got her on her initial banner. This is actually when I picked up the game for the 2nd time. I was always kind of fine with her. I actually really like C0 Raiden for what she was designed to do. Hyper carries were never really my thing. I don't like teams where one unit is doing 90% of the damage and everyone else exists just to buff them. So I have a lot of appreciation for this like weird driver style of thing that they went for, where she doesn't deal that much damage herself, but she buffs your other character's burst damage and she helps refund their energy. I like that kind of utility on-fielder approach that they did with her. As for Hyperbloom, I don't really play Hyperbloom that much. Like I mentioned with zhongli, I really like the interplay between characters in this game, and I think Hyperbloom just doesn't have much of that. It's just kind of throwing a bunch of elements together and spamming reaction damage. I don't think it's that interesting. But if I do go Hyperbloom, I'm choosing Raiden as my Hyperbloom trigger. Kokomi, I admit it, okay? I guess I'd just like to apologize to Kokomi Nation. I fell for the hate train. I didn't grab her on release. I didn't grab her until, I guess it was her last banner. That is a little painful to say. I kind of think she's just like a cooler Raiden. Not in the way that they do similar things. They don't at all, obviously. They're different elements, but they have that same like partial off-fielder with utility on-field playstyle thing going on. That utility being healing instead of energy refund is definitely less unique, but I would argue more useful. Kokomi feels a lot more quick swappy with her like skill refresh burst thing that goes on. I like that. She's a premium Barbara, but I hate how Barbara plays and I love how Kokomi plays. Next up, Itto. Jeez, these stories are getting long. Itto. I believe Itto was my first love. I wanted him so badly when he came out. I had just fallen in love with Itto. Itto is gorgeous. I'd still go back and I watch his original trailer. That thing is insane. He was a fun character. He was a big sexy buff man. We don't talk about the noodle arms. Just look over here. That's not important. Just look here. I had just gotten off of Persona 5, so I already knew and loved Max Middleman. And moreover, when he came out, I had no idea what I was doing in this game, so Mono Geo was the perfect archetype for me. No fancy reactions, just unga bunga hit stuff. I missed him on his first banner, and I kind of quit the game because of it, back until I got back with the Eternal Ayaka banner. And the only reason I did that is because Itto was rerunning, I think before or after, I can't remember, but I heard Itto was back, so I came back. And then once Sumeru came, I kind of got sucked in permanently. I eventually finally got Itto in 3.3, and he was the one who kind of forced me into becoming a completionist. My luck was so astronomically bad on his banner. I had to scour every inch of the map for every last primo I could get. I was achievement hunting, I was quest grinding, I was chest hunting, anything for Itto. I still play him, definitely a lot less than I used to. It was also around the time of Sumer that I started to learn more about the game, so Mono Geo became a little less appealing to me. I didn't really get to play it when I would have had the best time with it, but his little pseudo fighting game combos are still enough that I keep coming back to him. Next up, Shenhe. She generally is going to take Rosaria's place in double cryo teams, and as I mentioned before, I don't really like pure buffers. I also don't really like the way that flat buffs work. Her basically adding her own little instance of cryo damage is a lot less cool than buffing your characters based on what their inherent attributes already are. As I've mentioned with both Raiden and Zhongli, I really like playing into what makes units different, how they can interact with each other in different ways, and I think flat damage buffs just smooth everyone out a little bit. It makes everyone perform a little bit more the same. Actually, now that I word it as her doing her own damage that's tacked on to other units, I kind of like that idea. I think it's cool that she's a niche cryo buffer. I actually do like her flat buff in the way that she can turn herself into the DPS if she really wants. She wouldn't be able to do that if she had a more traditional, like, res shred and percent buff. She's interesting. I don't know if I will ever end up pulling for her. Miko, I want Miko real bad. Miko, yeah, I missed her initial banner when I quit because I didn't get Itto the first time, and all her other banners have just been at very inopportune times. I like this weird on-fielder with good off-field pressure thing that they have going on here. I really want to play her in Tighnari teams. I hear how fun those are, and I just can't get enough of Electro overall. Miko is probably my most wanted unit at this point that I don't have. Moving on. Should I just like cut and paste what I said about yoimiya? I definitely care about his character a lot less than I care about yoimiya. I also maybe hate him a little more because of this. He did this to me. I was going for Staff of Scarlet Sands in 4.2? Yeah, 4.2. And I ended up with this. It's not a bad weapon. It's not the best generic stat stick. I'd rather have Mistsplitter. I don't care that much about Ayato, and I honestly think it's a little bit funny to hate on him just because there's not really much to hate. Anyways, Yelan. Yelan was the first 50-50 I ever won. Yeah, you're reading that right. It took me 3 years to win a 50-50. I grabbed Hu Tao, Raiden, Tartag, Ayaka, Cyno, Nahida, Itto, Baizhu, and Kokomi, all without winning a 50-50. 9 50-50s in a row, all lost. However, it did kind of balance out because after Yelan, I won, I think, like 6 or 7 in a row and got a ton of earlies, which ironically averages out to being about average. Anyways, Yelan herself, when I first got her, she was a meta pull, definitely. I didn't necessarily want her, I just knew she was good and I could want her. I hated on her for a little bit. I generally preferred Xingqiu, but especially after getting Furina, I started to learn the differences between them and appreciate the differences between them a little more. I still think I use Xingqiu more, but I like Yelan. I think she is a lot of fun. It was also when I started doing her optional charge shot that I realized I actually do like doing charge shots, so thank you, Yelan, for getting me into bow users when I thought I hated them. Tighnari, I didn't grab either Tighnari or Dea on their initial banners, so I can skip them. Cyno, this is a special boy. This is a very special boy to me. When I started playing, I was just kind of pulling whoever was on banner. That's how I ended up with Hu Tao and Ayaka, as stated. Cyno was probably the last character that I did this with on his first banner, because he was so cool that he compelled me to learn how the game worked. To this day, Aggravate is still one of my favorite reactions because Cyno introduced it to me, and my future pulls were a little bit defined by what Cyno wanted. He's probably the first unit that really satisfied my urge to press as many buttons as possible. Itto, he does have combo stuff going on. I like thinking about that, but you don't know Frantic until you play TF Cyno. The timings are so precise with his empowered skills. If you're an Aggravate Goblin like me and you somehow don't have Cyno, I highly recommend grabbing him and going TF. Cyno was what really got me into the game, and weirdly enough, I think there's an alternate reality where Nilou holds that role. I think Nilou Bloom teams are really cool. There's a lot to consider, like who is your EM trigger, how are you getting the right sources of application on your enemies, and they also work much better in AoE. I'm kind of partial towards units that have good AoE. I like Nilou's kit and visual design a lot, but even though I think she's really cool, I'm just not all that drawn to Bloom as a reaction. It feels like a weirdly superficial thing to want to skip her for, but I don't know, that's just how I feel. I don't know if I will ever go for Nilou specifically, but if I got her, I would very happily use and build her. Nahida. Okay, well, if I didn't sound insane before, I'm going to now. I think I might be the only person in the world who can say that I pulled Nahida as a cyno support, and I ended up benching Nahida first. At this point, I much prefer Emily with cyno over Nahida, but Nahida certainly isn't useless. I don't regret her or anything. Her whole character is kind of just trigger as many Dendro reactions as you can, and I'm not the biggest fan of Dendro itself. I really like it as a supportive element, like with Burning or with Aggravate, but Spread and Hyper Bloom themselves, I'm kind of iffy on. I don't really know why, because functionally Spread is exactly the same as Aggravate. So Nahida, she's just kind of fallen to the wayside a bit on my account. When I need a lot of Dendro, I use Nahida, and I am happy to have her, but I just don't use her that much anymore. I kind of lied. Wanderer was a very frivolous pull. I didn't really know or care that much about his kit when I pulled him. I just kind of pulled him because he was there and I wanted to gamble. This was in the middle of my Fontaine insane 50-50 win streak, and he continued that win streak. Also got C6 Farazan on that banner. Very lucky. He's ended up being a lot more fun than I thought. He's effectively a toothpaste colored physical DPS, and that's as interesting as that can be, but I actually do kind of like the nuance in his combos. He has 3 basic chains: normal attack spam, N2C, which is 2 normal attacks and a charge attack, and charge attack spam. His normals are mostly single target projectiles with longer range, and his charged attacks have somewhat shorter range, but they're AoE and hit scan, I guess. All these combos have fairly similar DPS, allowing Wanderer to swap between them and change what he's doing based on what the enemies are doing. He's also a nice exploration convenience. We love that. I find him a lot of fun to play, but he's not always the most fun to talk about. Next up, Baizhu, and I am cashing in my first gloat card. With my insane predictive powers of pattern recognition, I thought that Baizhu was going to get a big buff once we got to Fontaine, and guess what? I was right. I also just liked him, and he was a good cyno support, so it didn't really matter if he didn't get the buff that I thought he would get, because I still appreciated him when he came out. I'll always appreciate him for being the easiest, most comfortable brain-dead unit in the game. I also realized that I skipped Alhaitham. I've actually thought about getting Alhaitham recently, just to have him with Kave. It goes back to what I was saying about Nahida. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of teams that have Dendro as a focus. The only spread DPS I really like is Tighnari, and he's a charge attack DPS, so he gets a free pass. I like all of them. Alhaitham's fine, and he does have that aspect of pressing a lot of buttons for me, but I think I will just always prefer even someone like Keqing, just because I like Electro so much better than Dendro. But who knows, I think I could be convinced one day to get Alhaitham. Maybe I'll try him out on his next trial, see what I think. Next up, we got some guys to seriously talk about. We have one of my favorite character designs in the game matched with one of my least favorites, and one that is kind of middling. I can get to it. I'm actually gonna go in descending order here instead of chronological. I'm gonna start with my favorite base kit design, Lyney. I grabbed Lyney in 5.2, and it may be time to admit for me that I perhaps am a Lyney main, which is kind of insane. I didn't think that anyone would ever top Wriothesley, except for me. I just can't get over how cool his kit is. He has his charge shots that slowly power up his skill and ult deal with AoE scenarios where his charge shots couldn't. He has HP manipulation mechanics, and he has backloaded damage, but he can control when the damage is backloaded. There is so much to think about and do with this little freak. I just can't stop playing him. I love Lyney, and all that packed into the high risk reward aspect of charge shot carries. He's perfect. He's perfect. If you don't know what you're doing, you kind of look like a bumbling idiot, but if you do, Lyney really makes you feel like a magician. This character is so sick, and I am sorry to all the Lyney stans who have been there since day one. You don't get enough credit, neither does your character. Now, anyways, how can I say all that and still call myself a Wriothesley main? To me, Wriothesley still wins overall. I don't love his kit quite as much, but it's real close, and his aesthetic design and personality are much more suited to me. And notably, this is the first character that I've come across who I have constellations for. Constellation, I guess. If C1 were part of Wriothesley's base kit, I think it would be a lot closer, because C1 is what makes him such a satisfying character to me. We're gonna have to go on a little tangent here to show off what I mean. Wriothesley has this cool mechanic. Itto also has the same thing. It's part of the reason why I was drawn to them, where even if you sprint or use a skill between the hits of their normal attacks, they continue their combo. It doesn't get interrupted. Anybody else using their skill resets their normal attack combo. So why is this important? Well, at C0 it's not, because Wriothesley has this whole charged attack mechanic, and at C0 it is incredibly inconsistent and hard to get. This is not something that you count on for doing his damage. Basically, to get the charge attack, he needs to go below 60% HP, but to keep the bonus damage on his normal attacks, he needs to stay above 50% HP. Even if you manage to walk that line, he only gets one every 5 seconds. C1 makes the charge attack a little more powerful by lowering its cooldown and buffing its damage, but the more important thing is that it gives it to him whenever he hits with the last chain of his normal attack, so you can consistently get it no matter what health you're at. So at C1, Wriothesley becomes this kind of free-flowing combo character where what you're trying to do is get to the last punch in his normal chain so you can do your charged attack. And because his skill and dashes don't cancel, you can do stuff like this. There is nothing in this game that is more satisfying than that to me. At C0, he just doesn't have that. He basically doesn't have a charged attack at C0. I knew I probably wouldn't enjoy C0 Ryo going in, but I love Wriothesley so much outside of just his C0 that I saved up to go for it. To this day, he's the only character that I have ever gone for constellations for, and I don't expect that to change. Something that I actually do pretty often in Abyss is, say I'm fighting a guy over here. Oh, well, hello. I'm beating him up. I kill him with my normal attacks. Wah, bop, 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 bop. Then I fly over and I hit someone else with the last punch and charge attack him. He is so fun and flexible at C1, but I just can't say in good conscience that I would love him the same way if I had him at C0. So we have one unit that I love, one unit that I still do love, but I wish he was maybe a bit different, and then Neuvillette. This is the second character that I feel some sort of regret for. I don't fully regret pulling him. I think a better word is resent. I like characters that are complex and uncomfortable because I have to find situations that make them less uncomfortable and work with their complexities. Neuvillette is perhaps the least complex and most comfortable carry that there is in this game. I see his place in the game. I definitely think it's good that there's a character who can reach his maximum potential and have good AoE without too much mechanical skill, especially because this is a mobile game. I mean, I totally get it. Sometimes there's rooms in Abyss or Imaginarium Theater or even like events that I don't necessarily want to deal with. Neuvillette can be very good at bypassing irritating content. That's why I said I don't fully regret him, but I don't enjoy playing him, and I don't think a character whose ceiling is this easy to reach should have a ceiling that high. Anyways, on to Furina. She's busted, but I like her. I like Furina because number one, she has restrictions, and number two, she brings other characters up with her instead of Neuvillette, who's just powerful on his own. Giving anybody in the game a generic 75% damage buff and access to the Marechaussee Hunter set is pretty cool in my book. It brought up so many older units from the dirt, and I am thankful that I have her. I don't think I deserve to get Furina. I was hating on her a little bit. I thought that she was going to be a big buff to Fontaine units and then not as big a buff to everybody else. Fontaine units definitely synergize with her, but I was wrong that you can't reach maximum fanfare with non-Fontaine units. I got her way too early. I won my 50-50 and I am a big Furina shill. I love Furina. Navia. Navia is a character who I don't really play her very much, but every time I do, I kind of forget how much I loved her. I loved her character in the story. I am quite biased for Geo. I do love my Geo characters, if you couldn't tell. Big Funny Gun is certainly a lot of fun. Navia is great, and I don't really think I give her enough credit. Xianyun, I actually went for Xianyun. I lost my 50-50 and ended up with Tighnari. I'm kind of inclined to say that that was the better outcome. I'm not incredibly interested in Xianyun. I might grab her to make C0 Hu Tao feel a little bit better, but Plunge isn't the most interesting thing to me in the world. She's got enough going on that once I get all the characters I know I want, she's probably next up, but I could definitely go without her for a while. Arlecchino and Chlorand are sort of in the same boat here. I respect a lot of what's going on in their kits. I think they both bring a lot of new stuff to the table. Chlorand has incentives to not play her with Bennett, and she can heal herself a lot and make healerless Furina teams kind of viable. Arlecchino can't be healed at all, and her infusion isn't tied to a timer. It's limited to a certain amount of hits. I like them from a kit design. I do not enjoy either of their gameplay. I know if I pulled for either of them, I just wouldn't play them. Arlecchino has the issue of being normal attack spam. It's not necessarily normal attack spam. I know you do dash cancels, but it's not enough for me. Chlorand is much in the same boat. It's normal attack spam, but you do a skill sometimes in the middle. I got Cyno if I want to do that. Also for Chlorand in particular, I got Sethos on her banner, and I started playing him, and I just realized that I liked him better. Xianyun. Okay, well, don't get me wrong. I'm still not going to pull her. I don't have that much interest in her kit, but I might make a video called Stop Calling Xianyun Bad. She does what she does, and she does it really well. Her healing either makes you unkillable, or if you're playing her with Furina, it builds up her fanfare really fast. She buffs off-field skill damage, which is not the most niche thing in the world. Like, she's obviously meant to be used with Furina, but how many other characters have off-field skill damage? Obviously, Bishul, Albedo, technically Raiden, Miko definitely does, Nahida, Dea, if she has any constellations, but not really otherwise. Furina, of course, Chiori, is that it? Yeah, Mawika, actually. Emily. How could I forget about Emily? I'm sorry, baby. She's really not as limited as I think a lot of people make her out to be. She's the best as a dedicated Furina support, and she's disgusting as a dedicated Furina support. Like, if you thought Furina's damage was high before, watch Xianyun clips. And of course, she has her fun little burst, which is a neuvillette charged attack. Yeah, it's on an 18-second cooldown and a 70 energy cost. She is not going to deal as much damage as neuvillette, but that's still a neuvillette charged attack. That's like 120 to 200k damage in AoE, depending on how you build it. She's cool, but again, she's probably not for me. Goes back to Klee with the design. I don't like looking at this, but maybe one day I'll get over it and I'll find her kit interesting enough that I want to pull for her. Also, how could you forget about the ministration bubbles? Come on, guys. Emily. This is my second gloat card behind Baizhu, except this time Emily was busted when she came out and only got better as Natlan units appeared. I love Emily, she fits into so many teams, I use her all the time, I won't shut up about her. If you've watched probably any of my videos, you know this. Emily's goated, I will not hear otherwise. Mualani. How I feel about Mualani mains is like how I used to feel about lyney mains. I respect it, but it ain't me. Maybe I'll have the same renaissance that I did with Lyney, and 2 years down the line, I'm gonna have Mualani and absolutely be in love with her, but for now, every time I try her in a trial, I feel like I'm drunk driving. To all the Mualani mains who make it work, I see y'all, I love y'all, you're probably better at the game than I am. Kinich. I think Kenichi is like the peak of what I mean when I say I just like hitting buttons. He's a pretty simple character to understand, and generally his teams are pretty simple. I have been using some insane things, but whatever. He's not always the most interesting character to think about, but man, does he give me a lot of buttons to press. I've just started getting into doing short hold combos. I found him to be a lot of fun, and I love the modern convenience of grappling onto enemies and being basically unable to miss. Oh wait, I skipped Chiori again. Chiori, well, moving out again, cause this is a pretty similar situation to Ryo. I have her C1, and I don't know if I would be playing her as much as I do without it. C1 makes her no longer reliant on a Geo construct to create her second doll, makes her be able to run with Navia, and especially now Xianyun. I mainly pulled her because I wanted a final slot for my Mono Geo Itto team, and I did not have albedo. She works this role perfectly well. I think she's pretty uninteresting as far as units go. It's kind of just damage, but I like her personality, I like how she looks, and I like teams where the damage profile is split across a lot of units. I grabbed her C1 at 11 pity. I did not want it. I was wishing for Stardust so I could purchase out the monthly wishes. I don't really regret getting C1. It makes her good with Xianyun, who is good, and Navia, who I like using. She's maybe the unit that I have the least to say about, but I still like. She's pretty and she does damage. What more do you need? Xianyun. Xianyun. When her kit was revealed, I was a bit of a Xianyun hater. You know what? I still am a bit of a hater. I hate her about the same amount. I think she's very boring. I've said that I don't really like characters who all they do is buff. They just increase damage. They don't bring anything new to the table. Xianyun is exactly that. Like, at least Kazuha, you can run him in electrocharge teams and get a lot of damage from his swirls, and also run him as an aggravate DPS. Xianyun's got none of that. I ended up pulling her for meta reasons, and I don't regret pulling her. I'm happy I have her. She makes my wriothesley work a lot better. She's much easier to get double element shred setups. She can shred Geores for Navia. That stuff is all cool. It's also nice that she heals for Furina. That's a cool thing, I guess. But really, I don't play Xianyun unless I feel I have to. I have enough on my account that I can make good use of her, but if I didn't have all those things, like Furina, like wriothesley, like Navia, I don't think I would have gone for her, and I think I would have been happy to not have her. But I'd be lying if I said she hasn't been very useful to me. I admit it, I've wheelchaired my way through a few Abyss cycles. I'm not exempt. Shaska, I don't know. I think it's cool what they did. An animo unit that infuses other elements and deals their damage that way instead of just dealing animo damage. But I think the way they implemented it is kind of lame and way too restrictive. Plus her gameplay is extremely uninteresting to me. Better than normal attack spammers because you actually have to aim, but not by much. I don't know, Chaska's just kind of a nothing burger for me. Seat Lolly! Yeah, Seat Lolly! Seat Lolly was my goat for Natlan. When that trailer first came out, I saw Seat Lolly and I was like, that one, I want that one. I also want to look like that one. She's silly, she's goofy. I had insanely high expectations for her kit, and they were surpassed. Because, oh my god, not only did we finally get a dedicated forward melt support, which she was kind of the reason that I pulled for Lyney, so she also has that going for her. Only other pyro DPS I had was Hu Tao. But she also scales on elemental mastery for some weird reason. Don't care, love it. She has a shield, and they just threw a nuke into her burst for some reason. You can set her up to do a 200,000 damage cryo nuke, and she'll still be good at doing all the other things she does. I've also been running her in Aura on Superconduct teams recently. Stole that one from Saluna. They could have made Seat Lolly so boring, and they didn't, and I am so happy. Mika. I hate to end off on a bad note, but I don't think my disdain for Mika is a secret. I think her fighting spirit mechanic is flat out scummy. I hate the direction that Hoyo has taken with it, and I also think her gameplay is extremely boring. I actually do like the bike. I think the bike is sick. I'm not a bike hater. I mean, it's goofy, but that's part of the reason why I love it. I love goofy things. That's it for characters. After a very, very long time of recording, ugh, God, that was like 2.5 hours. We're gonna take a break from stuff involving units to look at the completionist aspect of this account. I mentioned this before, I don't know if I'm gonna edit it in or not, but I don't have all the chests in every area. I only know that I have all of them in Fontaine, including the Sea of Bygone Eras. I believe I've completed Chenyu Vale. I'm 99% sure that I've completed Mondstadt, but the achievement that tracks your chest counter is broken for Mondstadt and Liyue, so I'll just never be sure. And I've done all these of Natlan. I still have, I think, about 8 or so chests in Ochka Natlan. I have completed all of the Sumeru Desert, which actually, now that I talk about it, is most of the regions. Only ones that I'm not sure of. Liyue, I sometimes find stray chests in Liyue. The occasional Inazuma chest, although those are very rare. I think I'm way closer to 100%ing Inazuma. I actually find a lot in the Sumeru jungle because I use an interactive map, but I didn't start using it until after the Sumeru Desert came out. And notably, I don't play with the map open on my second monitor because that spoils the exploration. What I do, let's see if I can find any here. No, it looks like I'm done. As I'm actively exploring, I'll walk around and I'll place pins down wherever I open chests. And then later, once I actually feel like it, and that's an important step, is only ever do things in this game when you feel like doing them. I'll open up the Genshin map, I'll open up my interactive map side by side, and I will mark off whatever things I collected while clearing the pins. And later in a patch, usually when a new area is about to come out, that is when I will open them side by side and I'll grab whatever chest that I missed. Mondstadt is the only region that I have gone back to 100% after its release. Everything else I've pretty much done as they came out, one of the perks of being a long-time player. And I do something pretty similar with achievements. Got 1,400 of them now, Jesus, I didn't know. But I don't tend to actively hunt achievements very much. I also keep track of my achievements on another website, specifically because Wonders of the World doesn't show you all the achievements that are available. I mostly get achievements naturally as I explore, and only once I really feel like I don't have much to do, that's when I'll open up my tracker and I'll start going down the list and checking them off. And some achievements I just don't even bother. There are some things that I just don't really care to do or I imagine will come with time, like these 2 achievements, defeat opponents with Burgeon and Hyper Bloom. If you needed proof that I don't play a lot of Hyper Bloom. These ones just got added this patch. I haven't bothered to go collect these books, but there's also a good few that these are just very long-term achievements. I'm not even working on these all the time. I might start grinding these guys out again if I really feel like it, but this isn't the most engaging thing in the world to me, and it's what, like half a wish that I get out of these achievements. This is another one. I've fished for most things in the game. I actually haven't gone fishing since Natlands fishing came out, so maybe I can catch a few more fish with that, but I am far from the 2,000 figure. I don't even know if I'm ever gonna get this achievement. Maybe I will. I only really bother to get the ones that are fun to get or that can be gotten within a few minutes. Because I like playing the game, that's turned out to be most of them. I also, very proud of this one, empty quest log besides the Lantern Rite quest. I should get this done. For quests, I'm definitely a little more guilty of doing things that I don't want to do. They generally give good resources for the time you put in, so I end up doing them. I think I've done all the quests in the game. I'm not sure. There are probably a few stray world quests. They're a lot easier to find than chests, and they bother you in your journal until you do them. Additionally, I have no story quests available, and all my hangouts are complete. I actually kind of do like the hangouts. I might be a little insane here. I was never one to grind them out. I always do them at my own pace. I get like maybe 1 or 2 endings a day, which I think helped a lot with my enjoyment of them. And generally, I also just like the characters that they feature. But if you don't like doing them, definitely don't force yourself through them. If you really want the resources, it's not that much. I would do it like I did it, split it across multiple days. Don't do every ending in one day. And especially with a lot of these that have these branching paths, I haven't even gotten all the nodes on these. Big suggestion that I do is maybe one day, say you went over here, there's just one point that diverges into 2 different endings. Instead of immediately going for the second ending, you can go up here, or you can go over here. Shake up which branch of the quest you're doing so that you're not redoing the same content over and over just to get a slightly different ending. I think that's it for quest log and exploration stuff. Let's swing back. First, let's look at weapons. Similar to how I don't pull constellations, I am not a weapon puller. I've gotten 6 weapons from Standard Banner, and I've gotten 6 weapons from Weapon Banner over the entire time that I played. As a rule, I don't pull weapons on Weapon Banners where I don't like both weapons, because this happened. First 2 I ever pulled for were Polar Star and one of my refinements of my Primordial Jadewing Spear. Other one I got from the Standard Banner. This I also got for Cyno. Please don't judge me. Pulled for these 2, got both these 2, but I got a little too cocky. I went for Staff of Scarlet Sands in 4.2, and I ended up with this. Since then, I've pulled 3 more weapons. 2 of them were actually in 4.8, Navia's Axe and Aqua Simulacra. Both of them were losses. I wanted Nilou's weapon, but I got Verdict instead. I was fine with that because I have Navia, I like Navia, and this weapon is gorgeous. And I passed for Emily's signature and got this instead. Aqua's one of the better generic stat sticks, so again, I'm not mad. Again, I have Yelan, except I actually don't use this weapon on Yelan very much. It's been a very good stat stick for Auron and Lyney. I kind of think that this was maybe the better outcome between getting Emily's signature or Aqua. Most recent non-standard banner weapon that I've gotten was Engulfing. I did not pull this for Raiden. I pulled it so that I would have a second version of the catch. Between Xiangling, Rosaria, and Raiden, I definitely use it on Raiden the least. And I'm not a weapon bannerer, but I did say I am a battle pass buyer. I have a pretty decent selection of BP weapons. 2 of them are at R5, Serpent Spine and Ballad of the Fjords. I think the rest of them are at R1 except Deathmatch, that's R3. And of course we got my levels 20 Solar Pearl. I picked this up in Sumeru because I already had every other Battle Pass weapon, and I figured I should complete the collection, but then in Fontaine they released more Battle Pass weapons. I have a smattering of favs. I have 2 warbows, 2 lances, 2 swords. I would like a 3rd sword. I've only recently picked up a lot of the good supports that really need fav swords. Before that, I was doing fine with really just 1. I have an R5 compound bow. I actually did do this one intentionally. This wasn't something that I did for the beginning of the game. One day I'll build Machine Gun Fischl. Is it going to be within the next decade? Who knows? I don't use a ton of event weapons. I have here Dialogue, Mailed Flower. I actually just finished leveling this up the other day, but I've gone most of my Genshin life without it. Tokubo, I actually never use this thing. Most of the event weapons are kind of rotting down here. Ballad of Boundless Blue, I am never leveling this thing up. This is actually something that I do want to level up for physical Neuvillette as well, if I ever get around to that. Right after I build physical Fischl. I only have a few level 93 stars. Harbinger, Black Tassel. I never use Black Tassel, but I should. Thrilling Tales, obviously, and Slingshot. A lot of these weapons that I've raised, I don't even use anymore, but I have gotten a nice variety. I'm kind of able to adapt to whatever the situation may ask of me, and that's really what I want my account to be at the end of the day. I don't want to be able to one-shot all the content and steamroll everything. I want to be able to have everything be enough of a challenge that I can have a good time playing it, but not so challenging that I get frustrated or just outright can't do it. Moving on to some of my characters, I'm a little bit neurotic. I basically always level my character's talents to 6, 10, or 8. Why'd I say that in that order? 6, 8, or 10? I guess it doesn't really matter. If it's an ability that does get used and gets a reasonable amount of damage, like Setho's skill, I'll bring it to 6. I don't really want to dedicate gold books to it because it's not dealing very much damage, but I think it's worth leveling to this point. 8 is for abilities that still deal a lot of damage, but they're not the character's main source of damage. I think a better example would be to look at Lyney. I have his skill at 8 and his burst at 6. Realistically, I could get some value by leveling his burst to 8, but I just don't really like using his burst that much. I way more prefer his skill. But like Emily burst You still get good damage from Emily Burst, but you get way more damage from leveling her skill. The other exception here is like Sethos, because Sethos is an aggravate DPS. His damage is pretty heavily supplemented by aggravates, which aren't affected by your talent levels. So in that same note, I have not bothered to crown any of Kaching's skills, although that did not apply to Cyno. I do not regret this. I love my baby boy. I'm also not the biggest fan of crowning defensive abilities. I just don't think it's that necessary. Only exception is Baizhu. I can't tell you why I did this. I don't remember doing it. I think I just kind of had the books, so I thought, why not? Cyno and Baizhu, I think, are two of my fun crowns. Where are some other fun crowns? Kokomi Burst is kind of a fun crown, as is... Oh wait, this is why I'm in Sumeru. I did this. Especially now that Pyro MC has come out, I don't think I'm ever going to use Dendro MC again, which kind of makes this all the funnier. Oh, Goro's skill is a little funny. I mean, I did this because it does help Itto's damage. Not by a lot, but it helps. Heizo's skill is crowned. Also have Sara's skill crowned. Beidou, I guess, is kind of cool. Do people like Beidou anymore? I don't consider this a funny crown because I still think Beidou is a pretty good unit, and I think this was worth it. But other people might think it's a funny crown. Yanfei normals. I think that's it for funny crowns. I don't have any triple crowns. I was going to with Bennett at some point, but I just can't justify the resource investment. It is so much everything. It's a lot of Mora, it's a lot of books. I mean, the crown isn't that important. I have a few on hand, but it's just too much. That's why I usually stop at level 8 skills. My by far funniest crown is Mika. His skill increases the normal attack speed buff that he gives. So when I get C5? Yeah, that buffs his skill level. I'll get an even 25% attack speed bonus from him. That was the only reason why I did it. I don't even use Mika that much anymore. I also have 2 crowns planned. I've been playing with Fremine a little bit, and I think I finally decided that I want to crown his skill as well as Sethos' normals. I did just give an explanation as to why I didn't crown his normals, but I like Sethos enough that I think I might. And I think this is last, and it actually, yeah, it is least, because you probably have seen this as I check through my characters. You're good, but usually, yeah, usually we're missing at least a few artifacts. Ooh, Navia is not looking good. A few of my characters do have their own designated set, like Wanderer has Shime, Itto has Husk. But 90% of the time, especially because I use characters in such different ways, like sometimes I use TF Kazuha on Traveler for Pyro Traveler, sometimes on Scroll, sometimes on Tenacity. I switch my artifacts around a lot. It is kind of a symptom of just having this many units built. I also just don't farm enough artifacts, I don't think. Every cycle of Imaginarium makes me more and more aware of that fact. Viridiescent Venerer is the big one. I didn't have a lot of Animo units built for a long time, but I've recently raised a lot, actually. I am much more interested in building new characters. If you can't tell, this is what most of my resin and battle pass resources go to. I level 90 everyone that I want to consistently play, and I get their talent levels to an appropriate level. Only one who doesn't have any talent levels? And he's staying that way. If I end up getting Nilou, I'm gonna leave her at 111, and then I might level up some of Kave's stuff. But I think it's just too funny to not have a level 90 character with 111 talents. And since Kave is mostly a bloom driver that doesn't get damage from talent levels, he's my sacrificial lamb. My next up unit that I'm planning to build is Xianyun. I've been meaning to for a very long time, and I only finally got around to it. I think the cryo infusion part of his kit is so cool. Not useful, but cool. I think he's a cool burst DPS, so I'm finally getting around to checking him out. But yeah, I think that is it as far as characters go. I do have some pretty Serenity pots that I would like to show off, but I'll spare you guys. This is a bit of a gameplay focused channel, so I don't think you guys would be that interested in it, so I won't subject you to it. If you do really want to see that, you can drop a comment. That bird's shadow was incredibly low frame rate. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for checking out my account. If you liked it, you can leave a like, and if you want to see more stuff from me in the future, you can subscribe. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a lovely day.